This week's Torah portion tells the dramatic story of a showdown between the prophet Elijah and the prophets of a false god named Baal. But what exactly was Baal? To answer this question, let's go back in time about 900 years before Jesus. In the land of Israel, there was a wicked king named Ahab. He wasn't always wicked, though. When Ahab first became king, he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord. However, after he married his wife Jezebel, everything changed. You see, Jezebel was a worshiper of Baal, and she convinced Ahab to abandon God and worship this false god instead. To make things worse, Jezebel didn't just worship Baal. She actively persecuted those who worshipped the Lord. Because of her influence, the people of Israel turned away from God and started to worship Baal and Asherah, another false god. This greatly upset God because he wanted his people to worship only him. So he sent a prophet named Elijah to confront King Ahab and tell him to stop worshiping Baal. The confrontation before telling Ahab that there would be no more rain, Elijah confronted him directly and told him how unhappy God was with him. But as you can imagine, King Ahab didn't want to change his ways. He may have been afraid of Elijah, but he was more afraid of upsetting his wife, Jezebel. So Ahab continued to worship Baal and Asherah and do what was evil in the sight of God. God's judgment as a result. God was very angry, and he sent drought to the land of Israel. No rain fell for 3.5 years. Everyone suffered. Crops failed, animals died, and people grew weak from hunger. Even the streams and rivers dried up. This drought was God's way of showing how serious he was about Israel turning away from him. The people didn't understand this at first. They thought the drought was a bad coincidence. They didn't realize that Elijah, the prophet, had cursed them. But when Jezebel heard that Elijah had cursed Israel, she became furious. She sent a messenger to him saying, "You caused trouble for Israel. You're responsible for this drought. You're as much to blame as Yahweh. I swear, unless you die soon, I will kill you." Imagine how scary that message must have sounded to Elijah. Here he was, hiding from Jezebel for his life, and now she was threatening to kill him. What was he supposed to do? Ahab and Elijah meet again, feeling threatened. Elijah fled south to the city of Beersheba. There he sat under a tree and asked God to take his life. Why didn't God protect him? He wondered. Why had he come to warn Israel if his own life was in danger? Just then, an angel touched him and said, "Get up, Elijah. You still have work to do." Elijah replied, "I've done everything you've asked, but I'm tired. God, your people have abandoned you. They won't listen to me anymore. They've rejected your laws and turned away from you." But the angel insisted, "You still have 450 people in Israel who haven't turned away from me. Go and tell Ahab to gather everyone to Mount Carmel. When they arrive, you will challenge the prophets of Baal. Let them compete against you. Whoever truly is God will answer in his own way." Elijah took a deep breath. Although he was scared, he knew that God was right. He had 450 faithful followers, while Baal had 450 prophets. God could easily show who was the true God. So Elijah got up and traveled north to Mount Carmel, where he met King Ahab. Elijah told him what God had instructed him to do, and Ahab liked the idea. He sent messengers throughout the land calling everyone to Mount Carmel for a contest. The showdown on Mount Carmel, soon everyone arrived, including 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of Asherah. The people stood with Elijah facing south on top of Mount Carmel, while the prophets of Baal stood with their God facing north. The confrontation was about to begin. Elijah stepped forward and asked, "Why are you here today? Why do you argue about many gods who cannot save you?" The people were silent. No one answered. So Elijah continued, "Tell me, is Baal the god of heaven, or is he the god of earth? Perhaps he is the god of some other world. Is he the god of Israel, or is he the god of some other nation?" Still no one answered. Then Elijah spoke boldly. How long will you hesitate between two sides? If the Lord is God, serve him, but if Baal is God, serve him. I am the only one who serves Yahweh, yet they say he is not God. If you are all on Baal's side, attack me. Elijah proposes a test at that moment. Elijah made a suggestion. He said, I will rebuild the altar of the Lord, but I will not light a fire. And you can build your altars and light your fire. The people agreed, and Elijah called to young men to help him rebuild the Lord's altar. While the two men worked, Elijah taunted the prophets of Baal. Hey, can't rebuild my altar faster than you can light yours. He shouted, you guys better hurry. We don't have all day. The prophets of Baal ignored him and quickly built two altars. They placed a bull on each altar and lit the one on the left. Then they called on Baal to answer. Baal, answer us, they cried. Baal, please answer us. But Baal remained silent. He didn't answer. Elijah stepped forward and rebuilt the altar of the Lord. Then he placed the bull on the altar and poured water over the sacrifice. Not just once, not twice, but 3 times. After the 3rd round of water, Elijah prayed, Yahweh, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, show your servants today that you are God in Israel. Show your servants today that you are God in Israel. And just as Elijah finished his prayer, fire from heaven fell. It burned the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and even the water in the trench. Everything was gone in a flash of holy fire. The people gasped and fell on their faces. The Lord, He is God, they cried. The Lord, He is God. When the prophets of Baal realized that the Lord was the true God, they tried to run away. Elijah, however, ordered the people to arrest them. Later, the prophets of Baal were put to death, and Israel celebrated as God had returned to his land. Rain falls again finally. After 3.5 years, the drought was over. Elijah called one of Ahab's servants and sent him to check if any clouds had appeared over the sea. Go up now, he told the servant, and look out toward the sea. The servant looked and said, the sky is a little cloudy over there. Elijah told him to go back to the palace and wait there. Then he went up himself to see what was happening. Sure enough, a small cloud was rising over the horizon, like the size of a man's hand. Elijah kept watching. The cloud grew larger and soon covered the whole sky. Heavy rain poured down and ended the terrible drought. Lesson though the showdown on Mount Carmel seems like a battle between two opposing forces, it really wasn't a fair fight. Elijah represented the one true God, while the prophets of Baal represented false gods that couldn't even light a fire. The entire story teaches us that the Lord is the only God and that all other gods are worthless and powerless. But the story also teaches us that sometimes serving God isn't easy. We have to be courageous and stand firm for what we believe in. When others mock us or threaten us, we must remain strong and keep our eyes on God. Otherwise, like Ahab and Jezebel, we might get distracted by false gods and turn away from the Lord. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to the channel so you never miss an upload. Also, feel free to comment your thoughts below. See you next time.